Hi, book warriors.
Hi. Can you hear us okay?
I hope you can. This is our first online live event with our lovely masks.
Which we're not going to leave on.
Yeah, we probably sound like wah, 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 wah. Charlie Brown. We are a few feet apart here, maybe not technically 6, but I did disinfect Melissa's chair with Lysol Max.
Thank you.
Hopefully I'm not spreading her any Kelly family germs on her chair. So. But we're so glad you're with us today, and we're sitting out. This is my front yard in Hillsborough, North Carolina. Melissa lives just about a mile away, and it's kind of a cloudy day, but cool temperatures. It's still comfortable out here, but we figured this kind of be the place where we won't be getting a lot of family running through and maybe some squirrels.
Yeah.
But just kind of a nice place to hang out and talk about books. So we've got our wine. I hope you have yours too. It makes book club even more interesting.
This is a fancy wine, $40 bottle wine, right?
I bought that on a trip to the Biltmore with my friends Cecilia and Patty and my cousin Diane. And I guess I have a cousin of the same name. So when I was young, I was baby Diane. Doesn't really fit anymore. But anyway, I splurged on this $40 bottle of wine, and we decided what better way to use it than to drink it at our first live book club event. So we're going to talk about Dead in the Doorway. I hope all of you guys have had a chance to read it. There may be some spoilers if you haven't read it, but hopefully we won't ruin anything for anybody.
And if you have any questions, feel free to type them in, because I've got a computer here so I can ask them. Diane's on the hot seat today.
Melissa is so much better at all this tech stuff than I am, so luckily she knew how to set all this up. She knows how to handle this. So yeah, we'd love this to be interactive. So if you guys want to send in some questions, I've got some things that came to my mind as I was writing the book and afterward, but we'd love to hear your thoughts on these things, and so chime in.
Okay, well, Diane, this is book 2 in your House Flipper series, Dead in the Doorway. Book 1 is Dead as a Door Knocker.
Yep.
Okay, so first, can you tell us what led you to write this series? Because my knowledge of you is that you're not super into renovation or anything like that.
You mean I don't clean my house? Is that what you're saying?
I don't see you out building, birdhouses or anything.
Yeah, because I have no talent, but I love watching those home renovation shows, even though I have no talent in that regard. I always find them interesting, and I always love to go look at old houses. And I know you lived in an old Victorian, and that's always kind of been my husband's dream, is that one day we would own this old house, and it would have all these cool things. And I love staying at old bed and breakfast and stuff like that. So I do have a fascination with houses like that. But this series, how I got this idea was, I lived in Nashville a few years ago, and when it came time for me to, wrap up the Death in Texas series and write something new, I thought I'd love to set something in Nashville, because I just loved this city. It was a great city, great people, a lot of creative energy, physically beautiful, physical surroundings there. I loved the rolling hills, just gorgeous. I loved all the rivers. We used to go kayaking out there. And so I pitched a couple ideas to my editor, who loved them, and the sales department kept coming back, for one reason or another, and saying, no, not quite that idea. Let's try, what else you got? And I happened to go to lunch with a friend of mine named Paula, who's actually, I knew her from Texas, but she had cousins who lived in Nashville. So she was out in Nashville all the time. And I was talking to her, and I said, I want to set something in Nashville. What would be a good idea? And she said, well, those older neighborhoods, they're doing all kinds of renovation, because Nashville has been booming for several years. It was booming when we lived there. And I thought, oh, that's great. People love these home renovation shows. I find them interesting. I'd love to learn more about it, even if I'm not capable of doing it myself, not strong enough to lift these 4x4s and 2x4s and stuff. But I thought that's perfect. So I had my friend Paula Heifel to thank for the concept. And I actually do thank her in the acknowledgments of this book. So thank you, Paula, for giving me the idea. But yeah, so that's kind of how that came around. So it's funny where writers get ideas, because we just, sometimes, people ask us where we get ideas, and it can be anywhere. It can be a friend. It can be a TV show, a news article, another book we read.
I've gotten a lot of mystery ideas from little news blurbs, and sometimes mixing and matching, but, turning them around to make them my own. But yeah, inspiration comes from anywhere.
Yeah, and conferences too. Like last year I went to a conference called MurderCon and learned a lot of it. It was actually, parts of it were kind of creepy, and I kind of would love to erase from my mind, but
it was great. You can't unsee.
Right. It was pretty hardcore, because there was a lot of thriller writers there too. But actually, some of the stuff that I used in this book, I learned at a romance writers conference. There was a guy, Jeff Simon, who wrote a whole series of books. He was a former coroner and wrote a lot of forensic stuff. So some of the forensic data in here I got from his
talk. Like liver mortis.
Yes, liver mortis. Jeff Simon, thank you.
I learned a lot, and I think that's really interesting when those things are based on fact, that you learned from somewhere.
Yeah, and if you liked him in this, then you'll like Bending the Paw, because I used a lot of the stuff in Bending the Paw too. Some fun, unusual clues and forensic stuff.
Yeah, that was cool. Okay, well, let's ask a question here. The book features. Oh, this computer died.
Doesn't really fit anymore. Maybe I splurged on this for you.
Okay. The book features a group of women who are not only neighbors, but close friends. Female friendships can be such an important support system, and friends offer things that a spouse or a family member cannot. So I have a couple of little questions that are offshoots of this, but what do your female friendships bring to your life that only those friendships can?
I think it's the female perspective. A spouse, unless you have a same-sex marriage, your spouse sometimes doesn't have the same perspective that you have on the world, the same concerns, the same experiences that you've had. And so to me, the female friendships are really my most relatable relationships. I mean, even more so than family, because usually your friends are about your age. You've connected because of other reasons.
Some common interest.
Yeah, common interest, just like us, with our writing and stuff,
Right.
So when you share a love of something like that, plus being the same gender and other things that you have in common, it's just much more relatable. And I think that, the advice you can give each other, the support you can give each other, it's really important. My girl time is very important to me. So.
And you have a nice thread between Whitney and Colette, her roommate, her friend, the chef, who doesn't want a chef as a roommate.
Yeah, I know.
I have a daughter right now, so she fits the bill. But that's a good support for Whitney as your heroine too.
Yeah, and that might have been some wishful thinking. I would love if I had someone living with me right now who would cook. Unfortunately, everyone relies on me, and I'm not a cook at all. I'm horrible.
Oh, I don't think that's true. Okay, have you had a neighbor who has also become a close friend?
Well, Exhibit A, right here.
I know. I was thinking about that as I was driving over, that it's been not quite a year since I've lived here, and I would be in such a different place had I not had you here as we knew each other in Texas. So it was just great fortune that we ended up so close. But I think, wow, my last 8 months would have been so different had I not had you.
Same for me, because I really did not get out a whole lot before you came here. And now that Melissa's here, I'm in a couple book clubs and found out where some of the good shopping, grocery shopping, because she actually does cook. So I've got along with her to some cool places like that. So yeah, so it's new hiking places, because she likes to hike too and take her dog. So I kind of feel like I tend to sometimes, I think, be a little more, too much of not a recluse really, but just not as motivated to get out. And you've motivated me to get out and do things.
Well, and I think being a writer is very isolating just by nature. And I have to force myself. We were joking that we actually got dressed in jeans and put some makeup on today, as I'm sure everybody's experiencing. But as a writer, we could just live that way every day, all day.
And sometimes we do.
Yeah.
I've been known to put on yoga pants, sleep in those yoga pants, wear them another day. Like, hey, they can be pajamas too, right?
That's right. Hey, they
Less
have
laundry.
multifunction.
Yes.
In your neighborhood, is your neighborhood friendly, or do people keep to themselves? Because in your book, that's the whole thing is around this circle street of women who are families that live there, but the women in their relationship with the two women that have died, one previously and then the murder. Yeah.
And I've had both. When my kids were little and we lived in Arlington, Texas, there was a bunch of moms on the street. All of our kids were about the same age. So we were always out there in the afternoon, and our kids would play. And I'm still really good friends with one of them, Sandra. And, was friends with some of the other moms during that time too, because we had a lot in common. So that was a great place. We felt like we had a support system on our street. Then I've lived other places where, you might wave or something, that people just kind of maybe weren't as friendly, didn't say hi as much. I've also lived in places where it was a little bit of a mix, like the last neighborhood we lived in Texas, people were pretty friendly, but most of them had younger children than we had. We were empty nesters, so we were kind of the odd ducks a little bit. So even though they were friendly, we maybe didn't have quite as much in common. But here it's great because right next door is Julie, and she's wonderful, and she's met Melissa too, and they have yoga in common, and,
right.
and so that's been nice having someone right next door. And she and I will walk through the neighborhood sometimes. So yeah, it's been great having neighbors like that. How about you?
Kind of the same. When we were in California, we had a group of neighbors, and the kids played together. They went to school together, and the adults played together.
Well, that could get a little risky.
That was fun. We all went on a cruise together one
Oh,
time,
fun.
which was fun.
Oh, wow.
And then when we moved to Texas, we were kind of in a neighborhood that was more drive into your garage, close the door, and go into your house. And so there wasn't a whole lot of commingling on the street. And then we moved to that Victorian, which was on a pretty, relatively busy street, I guess, compared to just a suburban neighborhood. So, and it was a lot of college professors and some college kids that, rentals and things like that. So, we've had a variety. And where we are now, it's a little more wooded, as you might be able to see. So not everybody's really close next to each other, but everybody's been so friendly. So we're kind of back to a place where, we're meeting neighbors. And
do you meet people on the water? She's got a lake behind her house. It's really, really beautiful and really interesting.
Yeah, in fact, Carlos was kayaking yesterday with his fishing pole. He goes out fishing every day, and I hung around and had like happy hour with some other people that were on their
so you
dock.
can see him across the lake, drinking a beer with it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so
really
that's pretty nice. And I think what we've heard is that during the summer that'll happen a lot more.
Oh, neat. Well, I may be heading over there with my guy.
I hope so.
Get some free beer and wine. Or I could bring some.
Paddleboard. We're going to learn how to paddleboard.
Yeah.
Okay, so often the most meaningful things a person leaves behind when they pass on are not monetary. In this book, in Dead in the Doorway, Lillian Walsh inadvertently fails to pass on her beloved peach pie recipe, and it leaves her sons and neighbors sad that they will no longer have the special pie to remember her by. I really want this recipe, by the way. It's not in the back of the book, is it?
No, it's not, because I'm gonna out myself here. It was just sort of made up on the fly.
Oh.
But I am going to actually make one that has the ingredients that I made up on the fly in here. And it's going to be on Mystery Lover's Kitchen on their blog at the end of May.
Oh, cool. With the lattice and the sugar crystals.
Oh, I'm going to have to try hard to do that. Yeah,
I have sugar crystals.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you might have to come over and cook with me then.
Okay,
but yeah, because I do make sweets. I do bake a little bit. So even though I don't really cook, entree type meals that much, or I'm not that good at that, I do like baking. Especially like cake decorating and stuff like that. So yeah, so throwing this pie together, I was kind of going, ooh, what would be good to put in the pie?
Yeah,
a little bit of maple
sounds,
syrup.
It's talked about so much that it made me want to. All right, what unusual things has someone left you after they've passed that has been especially meaningful?
So one of them, I probably should have brought it down, was my granny's sweater. And it was just, sometimes older people are just cold all the time. She lived in West Texas in a town called Odessa that was basically out in the middle of the oil patch. And it was usually pretty warm out there. I mean, this is desert. But she was always kind of chilly, so she always wore this sweater. And she also liked Giorgio perfume. Mm-hmm. And so after she passed and they were going through all of her stuff, that's what I came home with. And it still smells like Giorgio. And I even found her Kleenex in the pocket.
Oh.
So I have her DNA. I can make her.
You kept the Kleenex? It's in there still?
I've left it in the pocket. I mean, that may be weird. Is that weird?
I don't know.
It's just kind of
maybe a little.
It's like it's Greeny sweater and it smells like her. So that has absolutely no value. It's out of style. It doesn't even really fit me right, But I love it because it belonged to my grannies.
That's
What about you? You've been
I was thinking about this. My wedding ring, and then Carlos is my husband's wedding ring, or my grandparents. So
this was Curtis's grandmother's.
Oh, wow.
My engagement ring. Yeah.
Yeah. My grandparent, they both actually died the year that we got married. Before we got married. And so, she gave me this ring, and then after that, my grandfather gave me the ring, gave Carlos and I the ring that he had.
Oh, so, that's neat.
Yeah, and one time he was at a little reservoir and lost it. So it came right off of his finger, and he was with some students. It was this field trip, and they searched and searched and searched, and they could not find this ring. And then there was another student there, he was a teacher, who was staying on with the family, his family or something, and they were like, well, we'll look for it. They found it. in the muck of the reservoir, they found his ring.
Oh my gosh! Wow!
So I was crushed, but
yeah,
and he still wears it. So
well, that's neat because then that's kind of like when you think of the DNA you're passing on and stuff, and the love you're passing on and family. That's that's what I've always loved about this too. It's like it's kind of like keeping things in the family.
Well, and recipes are so personal, and they bring you back to such a specific time. They have a lot of power. So I love that you brought this recipe in. That was sort of, such a main part of the book.
I can't eat cantaloupe without thinking of my granny too. That was she always had cantaloupe at her house, and biscuits and gravy and fried meat at every meal. I'm a vegetarian now, but I think I ate my lifetime supply of fried meat growing up there. But she had one of those grease cans. You remember when people would have the grease can and she'd fry up some pork chops or whatever and then just pour the grease back in the can, and then the next meal you scoop out the grease. And, there was probably grease in there from meals made 30 years before. But it actually was tasted pretty good. Totally unsanitary, I'm sure, but that's how it was done.
Yeah.
You used to be able to buy cans that said grease on it. Did you
really? No, my mom always just used old.
Yeah. We didn't grow up in the South, right?
Yeah. Well, no, she's Texan.
Oh, is she?
So, her parents were, born and raised.
They must have had money.
No, they didn't. Maybe later because
they could actually buy their grease.
Real estate, but no, growing up they didn't for sure. But she just used a regular old open up the can of beans and the grease can. I don't know.
I'm not sure who got Granny's grease can when she died, but I would have loved to have had that. So probably my cousin Diane got it.
I feel like that should go in your moonshine series.
Yeah.
She's got a new series.
I have a new series coming. Very excited about that.
Okay. Does your family have a special recipe that has been passed down through the generations, and do you make it on special occasions or more often?
I don't really have necessarily I don't really have a special recipe, but another thing that my granny used to make was banana pudding with vanilla wafers on it. So I do make that sometimes, and it makes me think of her. But she didn't necessarily make it on special occasions. It was just when we'd come to visit, I guess that was a special occasion. She'd make it for us. So
did you? So we used to have that growing up too, and I decided one time, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, I was going to make it, and I just made the pudding and put the cookies on, and it was horrible. I was like, this is not what I remember it, because it was just like, this is just pudding.
But you made something at your house recently.
Yes, because a teacher that was across the hall from me when I was teaching in Texas a few years ago, she made this banana pudding for a potluck, and it was so good. Wow. Has condensed milk and Cool Whip.
It's not just out of the box.
It was like way better than
it's the gourmet banana pudding.
Yes, that had all my expectations.
Well, I remember the vanilla wafers stayed crisp. They didn't get all soggy because my grandmother's would get soggy. That's why you just ate as much as you could the first setting.
I kind of like it when they get soggy.
But one bad affiliation I have with that though is we had eaten a bunch of banana pudding, and then we got swine flu shots. This is like back, what was that, 70s or whatever? And then we all got sick. So for a while, I was kind of like, banana pudding always made me think of feeling horrible after getting that shot. But I got over it and ate more banana pudding later.
Yeah.
But I've known other people that have recipes. Like our friend Laura, she has a coconut cake recipe that's been passed down in her family, and they make it on special occasions. Like her daughter just got married, and her daughter wanted the coconut cake at her wedding, and I think it's just really neat when something like that can be kind of like the rings, that something that's passed down within the family, and you feel like you're keeping your ancestors alive, and tradition alive by doing things like that.
That's what our tamalada is about. We have a tamale making party every Christmas, and it's my mother and father-in-law's tamale recipe that we've adapted and changed and made our own. We do different fillings and stuff, but that's where that whole tradition started, and so. It stems from their original recipe. And then we have these kolache cookies that are not like the kolaches in Texas that are like pastries. Yeah. These are old, I think, German thumbprint cookies.
Oh, okay.
And they're yeast cookies. So that kind of,
I wonder if kolache means like something in the middle.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
Let's try this sometime.
Yes. Well, next time we'll do a baking.
Yeah.
All right, sawdust. So this is one of your thing. You're an animal lover through and through. She will not even kill a spider.
And a copperhead. We found a copperhead today, and my husband and son did not kill it.
You found it?
Yeah, it was right over there. I should tell you that since we're sitting here. They were pulling out some Carolina jasmine that kind of got overgrown and was making this trellis thing fall over. And when they pulled it out, it was kind of curled up in there. And so my husband got a pitchfork and just picked it up, and they put it in a little plastic bin. And then my son carried it out in the woods and dumped it out.
Oh my God.
we've had good luck doing that so far. I mean, no one's gotten bitten, so.
Well, I will be killing the copperhead. I will find somebody to kill the copperhead if it ends up on my property. So anyway, you write with a lot of animals. So Sawdust in this book is a kitty cat, precious, most beautiful kitty cat, even more so than Collins. Those are cute names.
Copernicus and Galileo, yeah, because he's got
trouble.
he likes the, he's kind of into astronomy.
I always have trouble with that name.
Yeah.
Okay. So Sawdust, very cute name, is docile though curious. And many cats are more feisty. Do you have a cat? Yeah. She's a whole cat room. And what might your cat do if it saw a pile of clothing on the landing, Diane?
Oh, mine would dig in it. They always like the covers, like at night, get in there and they want to get their claws on the covers and pull it back. So I have no doubt if they saw a woman on a landing covered in clothing, they would be clawing at it to try to see what's underneath and to get in there. And I always call it the kitty cat cave. I'll lift up the sheets and make a little cave, and I'll go in there, kitty cat cave. And Fritz, my male, he's real sweet. He'll turn around in there and kind of crawl up next to me, and that's kind of our little thing. We'll take a little nap that way.
That's what Dobby, our dog, does.
Oh. He's so cute too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very sweet dog. So,
but you've always had cats. But you have cats and dogs.
Yeah, we have cats and dogs. And my husband had a cat when I first met him, and then I got a dog. And so when we got married, we had one of each. We've always had both our whole marriage.
Okay, now what was your all-time high?
Oh, all-time high of 8 cats, and at that time we had just 2 dogs.
So she really is a crazy cat lady.
Yes. I didn't volunteer. Out of all those at that time, I think only 2 or 3 did we voluntarily seek out. We just had a really bad feral cat problem where we lived in Texas, and so there was just constantly feral cats showing up, and there was some that I was feeding, and my rule is I will feed you, but you are getting neutered or spayed. So when they come up, I neuter or spay them, and some of them, a couple of males that I neutered were like, "We're getting out of here. She took our balls. We don't want to be around here anymore." but some of them stuck around. It made them more mellow, and we'd leave our garage cracked where they could get in there in the winter. And eventually, the ones that I could make tame, I did. But yes, that's how we ended up with so many cats, because they were just everywhere there. And a lot of our pets, that's kind of how we've gotten them. It's just, they've been strays or, kind of came to us, sought us out. So.
Well, and you have such a big, compassionate heart because you fostered teenagers and animals.
It's almost like I need a certain amount of chaos in my life if it's too calm.
That's what my dad says. He's like, you like the controlled chaos of a huge family. And,
yeah, there's, a little bustle going on, a little, and I'm not a neat freak, so that kind of helps too, that, because y'all know, I'm sure, a lot of know a lot of the book warriors have cats. I've seen those pictures of your cats. So you're going to have fur, and they're going to cough something up on the rug or the floor, and, that's just the way it is. That's life with a pet.
Yeah, yeah. So. We ran the Roomba 3 times today. So much dog hair. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay, so specifically about the book now, Whitney and Buck fix the colonial. I thought I was reading Colonel. I was like, wait, who's Colonel Whitney? The colonial that Whitney and Buck fix up in this book was built in the 1970s and has some groovy features from that era. What decorating styles from that era were you glad to see go? And are there any that you think should be revived? Have you had a
you
house?
can chime in on this because you're the artistic one who just redid her kitchen, so she's really good at the core.
Yeah. It was an 80s house, but close enough.
Some of those colors, like the avocado green and the harvest gold, I used to think were atrocious, but now it's like you look at them and they're
vintage.
Yeah, they're kind of vintage now. It's like they were kind of funny for a while, and then kind of, and then now it's almost come back now. I'm kind of like, maybe it is kind of neat to have a colored bathtub or a colored sink or a toilet or whatever. But I have my mom's. She bequeathed me. She's still alive, but she gave me her Oster blender mixer from the 70s, and it's that harvest gold. I kept thinking, oh god, this thing is so ugly. As soon as it breaks, I'm going to buy myself one of those nice KitchenAids, and the thing will not break. Things back then were made of glass. So I still have this harvest gold, but that's kind of fun too, because that's not really anything that's valuable, but that's something that's been passed down. That I remember licking the beaters when she would make cakes and stuff when we were young, or frosting. So that kind of brings back memories every time I use it. But But yeah, so some of those colors, maybe those were good to go. One thing I did really like those. I liked all the I liked the like kind of star patterns that were in like light fixtures and stuff.
Oh yeah,
like
they
would
would
have
etching and stuff.
yeah, etched glass. I think is really pretty. So
Mm-hmm.
I like that kind of stuff. Even in like stemware and stuff, you would see a lot of etched glass, and
Mm-hmm.
on cabinets and things like that. I liked that, and light fixtures that were like that. Not crazy about the hanging loops. I think that was probably fine that went.
The Formica or laminate counters that have the edge so that part of it peels up. We have that in our bathroom.
Oh,
Not our bathroom. We changed ours. The kids' bathroom. But it's like two seams, right? And then this one lifts because it's so those need to go.
yeah, but yeah, some of that's kind of bad. But I do like one thing I did like. My cousin actually redid her bathrooms too, but she had the little square tiles in her bathroom, and hers might have even been from like 50s or 60s, but probably not 50s, but maybe 60s. I thought it was cute. Like to me, that was very quaint or whimsical,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, oh, I know you like stuff like that, but I just know she had it all torn out. But so some of that, the little tiles.
Well,
I
those
think,
are in. I mean, because you can get them on mesh.
yeah.
Yeah.
And neat little designs in them
Yeah.
and stuff in color. I like that. So what about you? Do you any things from?
Well, the linoleum floors and the linoleum or like whatever it is, the laminate counters. I don't know. I mean, well, we've had just beige cabinets and it's just the ugly colors, I guess. Like I'm with you that I like the old style of the appliances that are very vintage or retro now, and I would love to have something like that. Those curved refrigerators and stuff like that. But yeah, just the things that really make it look dated versus cool and retro.
Yeah, whether it's intentional or just
Right.
a holdover.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Both Dakota and his father, the characters in this book, are seen as irresponsible, which might be partially true, at least at first. But they also seem to be a bit misunderstood and had not yet found their places in the world at the beginning of the book. Have you known someone like this? Do you feel that others have misunderstood something about you? Well, let's do the first one first. So have you known somebody who's kind of seems irresponsible or took a while to kind of grow up?
Yeah, I can't think of anyone in particular, but I know I've been around people like this, that people kind of think they're sort of shiftless and actually one person that I'm thinking of, I probably shouldn't name names, but
I was thinking the same thing.
Turned out to be very productive. It was just harnessing the energy and the interest and turning it in the right direction so that it was productive and constructive instead of destructive. But yeah, so I think people can be underestimated, or if they're not fitting a mold. Sometimes when they're young or whatever, that people sometimes think everyone should be on this kind of one trajectory, and that there's one way to success or one way to fulfillment, and it can be very different. I think for different people, and what people want sometimes is very different. So, and I tend to have a lot of redemption in my story, so I liked that Dakota and his father kind of both got redeemed, because the father was always trying to find some kind of get rich quick scheme, and that can seem like somebody's trying to, that they're being lazy if they're trying to do get rich quick scheme. But really, he just kind of had, and he wasn't really my favorite character. He was kind of annoying, but he did have kind of an entrepreneurial spirit. I think that just he had not found a right way to use that. So it's kind of fun to sort of play with characters like that and people that have different approaches to life, in the books. And have you known someone like that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking people I wouldn't want to name either, maybe. But back when I was in college and I worked at this bar / restaurant, and there was a singer there, singer guitar player, and they played Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, and he was probably in his 30s, maybe late 30s, but he looked much older than that. He was living a kid life. But it took meeting someone to kind of get him on a different path, and then he did. I don't know what ever happened to him, but he did kind of leave that party life and got trained for a different kind of a job. And but it was really that person that was the catalyst for that change.
Did he still sing and do his?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he did. great.
Well, yeah, I heard Bruce Springsteen. My husband's a huge Springsteen fan, and that his father was saying, well, get rid of that guitar. What are you doing with that guitar? And thinking he's wasting his time. And then look what happened there. So. Yeah, so sometimes it's good when kids don't listen to their parents, and,
right? Yeah,
and what society's telling them is the right thing to do, and that kind of. Did your sons get to do that with their music stuff? Or people saying, "Oh, that's kind of"?
No, in fact, they've said the opposite. They really felt encouraged by us to pursue their passions and to do what they wanted to do. Because our two older kids, both graduated college or started college in one field and then switched. One finished college and then did a master's program in something else, and the other one stopped halfway, biology, took a year off, and then did 3 more years and got his music engineering. But a lot of their friends did not have the same experience, so they always felt like, wow, you guys really supported us and encouraged us to do what we want, and they have friends that are in that industry that didn't have that experience, whose parents were more like get real.
Well, it's kind of the same with us because my son went to art school, and it's always the joke about, somebody gets an art degree and how are they going to support themselves. And I mean, he has gone gig to gig. He's doing special effects for movies, and that could be kind of tough because you're hired on a project by project basis, but that's also doing what you love, is important. And my daughter's even mentioned this too. And I remember going to parent day at the University of Texas, and she had a double major, advertising and then theater and dance. And one of the theater instructors was saying, thanking the parents, for letting their kid pursue their passion. And she's doing some screenwriting now, so maybe one day she'll have a sitcom on TV.
Right,
fact,
she's at quarantine, right?
Yeah, she's in quarantine, and she's loving it. She's been furloughed from her job, so she's getting all this time to write. So she sent me a cute little short play she had written, and I love that too. I love that she shares my interest in writing, and we can kind of share that. So if your kids want to major in art or music, let them.
Yeah,
or theater.
They can be very successful. My kids have been very successful with that.
Yeah.
So, have you ever been misunderstood or not? People thinking your writing is more like a hobby.
Yeah, and I think I'm the youngest in my family. My husband's the youngest in his family, and so we got a lot of the people that still look at us even to this day as the kid sister, kid brother, and sometimes you feel like, okay, how many things do I have to do to prove to you I'm an adult now and I deserve some respect?
Yeah, how many books have you published? How many have been bestsellers?
Yeah. So it's kind of, but I think some of that are just, deep-seated routines, habits in relationships, things like that. But I remember too, one guy I dated before I married Curtis, and he said that I was kind of, I can't remember exactly how he phrased it, but tricky because I tend to goof off and I'm kind of funny and goof around. He said, you're kind of deceiving because he said, you're smarter than you come off. Yeah. He actually meant it as a compliment, but kind of like people could underestimate me because I seem kind of casual and goofy, and they don't realize that there's a mind behind here, behind the goofiness. But, I'm okay with that.
Lawyer. Jonah, I just learned that recently. She was a lawyer.
Yeah. There's a reason why I'm not doing that anymore. I'm better at this.
But you're also a numbers person.
Well, I don't know that I was ever a numbers person. I just didn't know what I wanted to major in college. And my mom said, well, you can't go wrong with an accounting degree. So I did it. So I can do your taxes if you want.
Yeah.
It's not my passion.
Yeah. But you do it though for your kids.
Yeah. And we have someone who actually knows English and everything here. She was an English teacher.
Yeah, but I had to learn so much to actually teach English. I don't know, what's a dependent clause? I had to look that up.
Gerunds.
Yeah.
Well, there's things I still like when you have a prepositional phrase and then is it me or is it I? I still, sometimes I don't get that right, but I figure since I write in first person, I can just blame it on my character because it's their voice, right?
That's right. Authenticity.
Yeah.
All right, Colin and Whitney. So Colin is our detective, yeah, the potential love interest here. They seem to be developing an attraction, and two people who have met over a course find it happily ever after.
Well, I get people meet in all kinds of ways, and meeting over a dead body. I mean, you've always got a story there, right? So
that's right.
It's not really a meet cute. It's kind of a meet creepy, but.
But Whitney seems she's pretty tough. She could look at the autopsy pictures and just say, whatever ick factor is superseded by my curiosity.
Yeah.
Past that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's part of her, her methodology, like doing, flipping these houses and having to, make a plan and approach this plan and how do we do this step by step. And that's kind of, the same with an investigation. Take what you have and figure out what tools and things you need to get to the next step in the process, to reach your final conclusion.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you, when you started this book in particular, did you know the whole story and who the murderer was in the end? Because it seemed like every third page there was somebody new it could have been. I was like, wow, there are a lot of suspects here.
I am real nerdy about that. I have to know where I'm going. I know some writers can write by the seat of the pants. How do you do it? Do you know who your killer is going to be?
I generally do, but I have also a couple of times changed it.
Oh, wow.
Because I was like, no, I want this person to do
Yeah, I always know who it is. And I always have not a super, super detailed outline, but detailed enough outline before I start out. Like I go through and I do kind of a chart, a spreadsheet. That's our
nerdy side.
All back to my nerdy side. Yeah. And, I figure out, okay, what's the scene number? What's the day and date? To keep my chronology straight.
That's the super nerdy side.
Yeah, that's the super nerdy side. And then, who's in the scene? What's happening with the setting in the scene? And then what happens in the scene.
Really? You do all of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it helps me remember to put in like some little things about the setting, and then I'll go through several iterations of that. That chart or spreadsheet. Go in and change some things, and I still have surprises along the way. Like some writers say that they don't like having this too planned out because there's no surprises for them, and so it's no fun. But I have written things before where. Maybe my spreadsheet would say, something bad from her past here, but I didn't know at the time what it would be. And it wouldn't necessarily be something, be something big, but it wouldn't, necessarily change the course of the rest of the book. But like in my book, Busted, for instance, I knew that she had something during her past, but I didn't know what it was. She had left her job as a motorcycle cop in Dallas, moved back to a small town. And then I was riding along, and I was like, things really changed the day I killed that man. And oh my God, she killed a man. And I'm like, how did that happen? What happened? So that was kind of interesting to me because it's like it just came out of my fingers. It's kind of I was divinely inspired, for that. So there are still surprises, but I have to know where I'm going. Like I can't imagine going on a trip without having, mapped it out, that kind of thing. It would scare me too much, and plus it's just faster, So how do you process?
I know it's faster because I've plotted that way once, not to the degree that you have, but no spreadsheets involved. But it did come along much faster. For some reason, that book was much clearer in my head. But yeah, I know where I'm going to start, kind of like a trip from California to New York, right? I know where I'm starting and where I'm ending, but I could go any variety of ways. And so much happens just as I'm writing, and then I have to stop and think and process where I'm at and then what happens next. So it's much more organic, for sure.
Yeah, and it is interesting, talking to other writers about, like we had lunch with another writer a couple months ago. She was saying she doesn't know who does it when she writes a book. So she'll have, several characters, and then when she gets to the end, she'll decide, I guess I'll decide, this character will be the killer. And then she'll go back and kind of amplify that a little bit.
Right, and I end up doing that too. Yeah, but as things develop, I'm like, okay, now I need to go back and change this because now I've made a decision. So it's not the most efficient way to write, but
But it is funny, yeah, because and the process can change book to book. Some books are so easy to write, and other ones, like there's been times that I felt like, I really know where I want this book to go, but it was just like pulling teeth to get it out of me. And then there were some that I had a looser outline, and it just was like somebody described it once as taking dictation from God. And I was like, yeah, I've had those where it was almost like I couldn't even keep up with my fingers, my mind, and it just kind of came out.
Well, and I find like if I'm off track, then that's when I get blocked and I just can't write in. So it's understanding, okay, that means something's not working right, and I need to revamp that process. And I always it's always much more difficult if the plot is connected in some way to something real in my life. So, for example, the one I'm right now, it does have some characters that are based on some real people that were not super nice people. And so, but I'm finding it hard. Finally, now I'm about 2/3 of the way through. These characters have become the characters rather than some, version of this real person.
So these people you killed?
Yeah. In my dreams. But so now that they're real, now that they're characters, and those characters have come into their own, it's easier because it just took a while to kind of separate that. But I wanted, this was the model for this character. So,
and in a few months, she's going to be on the hot seat because we're going to be doing her next book. So it'll
right.
be fun.
So we're done.
Yeah. And next month is Dorinda Jones.
Dorinda Jones with A Bad Day for Sunshine.
Yeah, so be sure to pick that up. Dorinda's a friend of ours from, I know her from Romance Writers of America, and she's a lot of fun, very neat person and interesting, and her books are a hoot. I loved her Charlie Davidson series, and a lot of y'all may have read those. They were sassy.
Yep, and A Bad Day for Sunshine is the first in a new series that she's doing. So we're super excited to feature the book, and then at the end of the month, she'll be here with us, not in person, but some sort of Skype or Facebook Live.
Our tech person will figure that out.
Yeah, I have a month to figure it out with her. But that'll be fun. Well, we hope that you guys have enjoyed our very first Facebook Live.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Okay,
See you next month.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Cheers.